Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Thursday, October 12th. I'm your host, Tom Moore. The Purdue game is in 2 days. The game against Michigan in 44 days. All right. We've been messing around with a bunch of different formats for these Ross Fulton shows on YouTube. We're going to try something else a little new today. We're going to go through the whole conversation. If you're listening on a podcast, it'll be exactly the same. If you're watching on YouTube, you're going to get to hear Ross talk about all that stuff, but we're not going to show the game video on that. If you want that, you got to go to the Huddle Board at BuckeyeHuddle.com, which is members only. So if you want to watch Ross and see the plays we're talking about, and I know a lot of you guys like that, but we're going to limit that to our members because we value our members and appreciate everything that they do for us. So we're going to try that, and we'll see how that goes. So that's, again, sign up today at BuckeyeHuddle.com for all of that. All right, so now on to the show, and we're going to be talking about Ohio State and Maryland, and what did we learn about Ohio State and Maryland? Because there was some good and there was some bad, and there was some real good and some real bad at times in that game. We're going to be doing that, of course, with Ross Fulton. Ross, I know there was a lot of consternation from Ohio State fans about the run game, the lack of the run game. Let's start with one. This is a stretch play. We have seen them run many of these over the years, and just doesn't quite work. So what's the issue with this first one we're talking about?
Yeah, so a couple things I want to note here to start off, and obviously had to focus on stretch, right? I think that I will say, and we'll see this in the subsequent clip, like myself included, like many were probably overly focused on the amount of stretch they ran. They ran basically every play they have in their arsenal. It wasn't like they weren't searching for answers, but this play, like many others, they're in 12 personnel, and so they used a lot of 12 personnel on Saturday. I think something like 29 snaps, maybe. I know 8 of the first 10 were. So obviously they had a game plan. I think what they were searching for is that they wanted to keep Maryland in their base 3-4 defense. And they did get that look. I'm not sure how effective that was, but this play, and then going to this play, they're running boundary stretch to the boundary. Many of the same problems that come up time and time again, right? So first of all, like, when we talk about the offensive line, sometimes that excludes the tight ends. The tight end blocking, especially from 12 personnel, is as much an issue as anything. So, Cade Stover doesn't get himself turned towards the hole. He gets flipped. They lose leverage. Donovan Jackson and Josh Simmons do not get off the combo to the play side linebacker. Like, that is a constant issue, like not getting to the second level and picking up the play side linebacker. Like, Joel Klatt showed that many times during the game, and we'll go through sort of a medley that they put together of that. But again, you're like not getting to the second level. You're also not driving like that defensive end to the second level. And so the play just gets strung out. And so this is sort of an example, one of many examples of some of the problems that they're having in the run game with stretch. And then, as we'll see here with this sort of these 3 plays in a row, non-stretch plays as well.
All right, so yeah, let's just move right on. What an exciting medley this was for Ohio State fans, like a vegetable medley, and it's all broccoli. This is 3 different run plays where the offensive line doesn't get up, and you got linebackers just absolutely clean at that second level. So run us through these 3. And
again, so like we got 3 plays here, and note only one of them is really an outside zone play. The jet sweep to Emeka Egbuka is the same. It's a lead outside zone play. So you have the similar blocking. But the first one's actually a mid zone, right? And again, similar issues. Like, now, I personally, this is an RP. It's attached to an RPO. You have kind of this tight end flare screen to the bottom. It's man coverage. So McCord makes the right read because the defender travels with the tight end to give, but it's not a great look to run this into. Like I said, they wanted them in their 3-4, but the problem is it is hard to get combo blocks off of this because you got 3 interior defensive linemen. So it's hard to get off to the second level, but like this play is actually blocked okay. Again, it's not just the offensive line. Like, if Chip Trayanum stays on his path here towards the play side B gap, I think there is a hole there. Fryer does get some movement, get his guys turned. Alternatively, against this kind of look, like J.K. Dobbins was sort of famous for, like, he would jump cut back into that backside gap between where you get the movement on the mid zone going towards the play side, And then you have that backside defensive end that's kind of hanging tight to handle the bootleg and RPO action and like cut between that. And maybe that's what Chip Trainum's trying to do there, but he doesn't make it. And instead he sort of just runs right into the back of his lineman. So like, it's sort of it's a compilation of errors, right? And so again, then we get to the Abuka lead sweep, same thing. So like you're just not getting to the second level. And like what's compounding the issue on not getting to the second level is when the offensive linemen release to get downfield, like if the play side linebacker is past them already, like a 320-pound dude is not going to chase down the linebacker and get to him. So like what they need to do is at a minimum turn and pick up the backside linebacker who's already blocked. And that at least gives you a chance to maybe cut back if the play side linebacker over pursues. Carson Hinsman finally did that in the fourth quarter on a stretch play. And like they had a nice cutback run with Mine Williams. So like that alone to me would solve some of their issues, putting everything else aside, like at least give yourself a chance to pick up the backside linebacker. But they don't, they chase here and they get neither. And also Jillian Fleming misses a block on the play side safety. And so final play, again, we've called for more gap runs. So they did try them in this game. Like this is GT counter. They ran GH counter. They ran pin and pull. Like they just didn't block them well. And so again, you have like a comedy of errors here. So first of all, they arc release G Scott, who again, playing G Scott a lot in this game, second tight end, onto the play side safety, and he just whiffs. And so you've already got the safety in the hole who was supposed to be accounted for by the tight end. That Matt Jones pulling, who's supposed to be kicking out, has to pick up. Like the play though still has a chance of being somewhat successful, except Josh Fryer just takes a really bad path, for lack of a better term, and runs right into Kate Stover down blocking. So like, and often you got to get around that if you're pulling and lead through the hole. And so again, I think, we've covered already a number of names have come up on these plays. So it's not like it's like one person. Like, I do think that like there's a lot of focus on the tackles. I think Carson Hinsman's really struggling. Like he's playing too high. He's really struggling getting to the second level. Like, as I said, he can help himself by getting back and at least turning and picking up the backside linebacker instead of trying to chase down the play side. I don't think the running backs helped them either on Saturday. Without TreVeyon Henderson, like Henderson's coming in through a lot of criticism from me included through the years. For his vision. But again, I don't think that they're definitely, to the extent there were holes available, they weren't really getting hit. And so that's kind of leads to sort of the morass of run game, that they had now with a couple exceptions, which I think we can touch on here.
Yeah, so I think we just name checked the offensive line, pretty much everyone. I think both of the tight ends, also the running backs. So I think we have an officially, and other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how is the play situation developing here? Let's try and brighten the mood a little bit with one play that did work. This was the short touchdown run by Chip Trainum, where they succeeded in the red zone, they succeeded on the ground, they succeeded in short yardage, and the defense even had 11 players on the field. So this feels like one of the real bright spots from the day.
Yeah, and so hey, that was one thing. They also converted on a 4th and 1 in the middle of the field earlier in the second half with a heavy lead outside zone. I mean, I think that's Chip Trainum, as we discussed last week, adds a lot of value in short yardage. Just being able to churn through extra, for an extra half yard. But I like this crack sweep for a few reasons. I mean, again, we just talked about like how much trouble they're having getting to the play side linebacker. So, if you're not reaching them, a nice way to deal with it is to crack them and block back on them and create leverage and then get your offensive lineman out of space. Now, Matt Jones doesn't have to do anything here because the defensive backs follow the crack blocks. But you're at least trading responsibilities. I think that this play has even more potential once Henderson's back. Obviously, like as we've discussed, Henderson has an explosiveness level, and the goal is to get him on the outside and in space. So this play can do it, and you can run it from the shotgun. And we'll talk a little bit about play action here coming up, and Ohio State in the pistol and versus the shotgun. But they continue to obviously have the tendency that when they're in pistol or under center, they're going to run the football. when they're in the shotgun, they tend to throw it. And so the more things you can do to mess with those keys, the better. The crack like duo has some issues with like you got to get guys close and bunched in, and so that gives some tells. But I just think they ran this one more time in the game. They had probably like a 6 or 7 yard gain, and so I just think the plays, this pin and pull going forward, plays that can get Henderson on the edge are probably what they need to lean on a little bit more.
All right, so that was the review of the run game, and probably more bad than good, but a little bit of good there at the end for you. Now let's move on to the passing game, and there's more good than bad here, that's for sure. We'll touch on both sides. We're going to provide you both sides of the issue here, but we're going to start with how often have we talked about the RPO and how it makes things look so easy over the span of this season. Let's do it again, Ross. Let's show people what they're doing that makes things a little easier on Kyle McCord.
Yeah, and I mean, I consider this, we're still on the run game, because as Ryan Day likes to say, like, these are called run plays, right? And so I just think, listen, like we heard Ryan Day on Tuesday, they're not going to fully go away from getting the pistol or under center and running other run plays. And I don't think they should. I mean, I think that there's play action opportunities off it that we'll see here. And like, that's an unreasonable expectation. But I do think they should not be in as much 12 personnel as they were against Maryland. Like they're just losing value by taking Julian Fleming off the field for G. Scott. If you want a tighter, heavier formation, like just put Fleming closer to the line of scrimmage. I don't think you're losing that much in terms of blocking. And I just think that this is where they've been at their best. Like partially it's because how defenses are playing them. So like Maryland, like we talked about, like they're playing a tight 3-4. Their linebackers are triggering aggressively downhill, and they protected themselves most of the game with like a soft cover 4, essentially. And so they're just leaving these mid-range throws. And, the more Ohio State can get the ball to Harrison and Ibuka, like the better off they'll be. Even just you want the ball in your best playmakers' hands. And to their credit, they are expanding their RPO looks. So like this one, you're putting together a mid zone. You're using a little short motion or fast motion to get Harrison as the slot receiver, and he's basically just running a quick hitch. And we saw a couple different versions. Like they had a nice one. Unfortunately, the one where Ibuka got hurt, they read the backside outside linebacker and sent Ibuka on kind of a flat route. So they are expanding this. I just, I think there's a valid philosophy of like make a team stop what's working until they do keep doing it. And, as I said, I don't think they're going to RPO every play because I think that would violate what Ryan Day said on Tuesday, that like he wants to make sure there are times he wants to run the football and he wants to get heavy play action looks off of that. But like it just needs the numbers of how successful they are with these are too overwhelming right now to not do it more often and not get an 11 personnel and run from the shotgun, mid zone, duo, and that crack sweep play.
All right. Now you mentioned play action passing. Let's talk a little bit about play action passing. This was one of the biggest plays of the game. This came one play after the 2nd and 33 conversion to Marvin Harrison. It was a touchdown to Cade Stover. And Tony Gerdeman and I did the rewatch of this game on the Buckeye Weekly podcast on Tuesday night. And it's amazing. You go back and look, and boy, they were in a tenuous situation like 20 seconds before this. It's like 10:45 left in the game. They're up by 3 points. They've got the ball 2nd and 33. And then boom, 2 plays later, Cade Stover's in the end zone, and it feels like Ohio State's kind of taking control. So what did they do to get Cade Stover in the end zone on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Ryan Day can rightly say to critics Saturday, like it may have taken them too long to get there, although I mean, part of it was just their quarterback's inconsistency in the first half, which we'll discuss still. But they did eventually get to heavy play action off of 12 personnel. And so here you've got they fake the orbit reverse, which gets like a pivot from the quarterback, which hides the football, which is always nice for play action. You see the Miami Dolphins doing that a lot right now. It's kind of becoming back into vogue. And Ohio State does run the ball from that. But that pivot series, then the nice thing is, booting off of that, McCord has tended to dump it into the flat. And he did a nice job here waiting for his downfield option to come open and pushing it downfield. And so you saw, and this was probably like the fourth big 12 personnel play action pass they hit. Like a couple of drives earlier than that, like around 10:30 in the third quarter, they ran like an all comeback concept from pistol and play action. It wasn't a boot, which is about the first time I've seen them do that. And I watched a lot of Ohio State, run these plays. So that was good to see. They're just play action passing from pistol. Then like immediately after that, they do like a half roll play action and they throw back to Fleming, the one that McCord underthrew him on that he was wide open. And then, the next series, they go right back and they slide Harrison into the flat and then again hit a throwback to Stover on that to get them inside the 5. So they did pay these things off. Like Maryland was definitely being aggressive against the run. And so I don't think it's reasonable to expect them to like abandon this part of their playbook. And like you do get the explosives off of like heavy play action. So I get where he's coming from. It just, I think there's questions about whether they should have gotten to it a little bit sooner. But they did get there. And to McCord's credit, like as we'll talk about, he got himself finally going in the second half and hit some of those plays.
Well, next up is one from the first half before he really got himself going. And it just, rewatching that game on TV, it just felt like he was just real antsy in the pocket. And with the pass pro that they had at times, you can kind of understand that. But it did feel like he maybe bailed a little early at times. This is one of these examples. We've talked in previous weeks about the fact that sometimes he comes off of Marvin Harrison a little bit too early. This might be another example of that.
Yeah, I just thought, bailed too early / like didn't throw the ball in rhythm, like didn't hit guys out of breaks. He just was, it was sort of probably about as poorly as I've seen him play this year. As you said, fortunately he pulled himself out of it, but like, this is again, a good example. Like Maryland had a 3-man rush going. Like there's no reason for him to bail the pocket here. He could have hit Harrison out of the break if he waited. If he didn't like that throw, like he could have stepped up a step and then hit, Fleming's wide open on a deeper comeback on the sideline. Like there was a few times, especially early, that like, Fleming was really open and, it almost to the point, it's like, is McCord like not really looking his way because, he finally hit him, as we talked about, on the deep one that he underthrew. But there's definitely some opportunities there. So again, like, for each of these plays in the first half, like as much of their problem in the first half was as much as it was running the ball, it was also just, McCord just not playing well, to be frank. Like second series of the game, they actually got a couple first downs running the football. And then they had 3 straight pass incompletions where he missed some open receivers once they got past the 50. So, it was kind of all the above. The good news is like, you can find clips from the second half once he got going where he, hit those same kind of comeback routes as on this play in rhythm when guys are coming out of their breaks. So he can certainly do it. It just, as Ryan Day said, like after the game, like they got to find a way to get him going early, whether it's, you would think that like flash screen they ran the first play of the game, like that's about as easy a throw as you could do. But, even easier, like hitch RPO to Harrison to get both of them going in the game. But, as we go, the good news is, as to segue here, probably the last touchdown throw from McCord was about as good as he's done.
Yeah, well, and this was one where he had to do it twice because they had the touchdown and they called the motion penalty on Xavier Johnson that called it back, and then they just it was essentially like, oh, I've seen this one before, and it wasn't quite the same play, and it wasn't exactly the same spot in the end zone, but it was pretty darn close. So, walk us through this last one, the touchdown to Marvin Harrison.
Yeah, and again, so I was like, is Harrison just snake bit? Is this going to be like the third touchdown of the year or whatever that refs have taken off for like incorrect penalties? But anyway, so thankfully they came right back to it. But this is a nice read and throw by McCord. Like as I said, like every game he does seem to get better as the game progresses, which I guess is better than the alternative, but definitely have to find a way to get him in this spot earlier. And so this is a follow concept. So you're basically running like 2 kind of deeper crossing routes with Harrison running the second and Maryland's in Tampa 2. And McCord sees that the pull runner middle, deep dropper is held by the first follow and, immediately turns to Harrison and hits him in stride. So it's there. He can certainly do these things. And and there is a question of like, it was also nice to see them just use their regular passing concepts in the red zone. Ryan Day went through, some of the plays and some of the reasons they didn't work near the goal line earlier. I think overall I think some of the individual calls are fine. Like I liked the fake crack toss sweep and try to throw it back. I just think McCord got to it too late, but got a little cute. And, they ran like the lead outside zone to train them, or they tried to set up the tunnel screen to Xavier Johnson on third down. And, I'd like to see them just sort of try to execute their low red zone passing game before going to those concepts. Again, when you're not running the football well, you tend to try to gin up offense near the goal line. But, let's see if they can just throw the football in those situations with their base drop back concepts.
Thank you, as always, Ross, for joining me. Always a good and insightful conversation on all this kind of stuff. And boy, is there a lot to talk about with the Ohio State offense. Last year there was a lot of rubbing your temples kind of shows about the Ohio State defense. The offense is having a few of those this year, but we'll good to get some breakdown and some thoughts on the whys behind the stuff that is making everyone rub their temples this year. So again, and if you want to watch these with all the plays, with so you probably give you a little better sense for what he's talking about at times, you can do that as a member of BuckeyeHuddle.com. We've spent the last year telling you, hey, you should become a member there, and now here's one more reason. You get a chance to take a look at some of these video breakdowns from Ross. So that is all on the Huddle Board at BuckeyeHuddle.com, which is members only. So sign up today and you get access for, try it for a month. Like we've said, try it for 30 days, and that'll get you through this weekend's game, the Penn State game, the Wisconsin game. I mean, this is going to be a pretty good month to try it out. And then if you think you like it, well, good news. You can get a discounted rate for an annual membership as well. So that's all at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That will do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.